This I'm mirrored.
Oh, you're mirrored?
Yeah, it's like this is my left hand.
Oh, right. Yes. I see what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, for
yeah.
real. Okay. Well, people. Yo, joining me today is Bill Posley. Is that
Posley.
Posley?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Bill Posley, who is the director and co-writer of this new horror joint, Bitch Ass. Yo, Bill, where the fuck did this come from? Because I gotta say, right, me and horror is an odd thing, right? Because there's shit that I do enjoy, but it's a bit like I don't want to watch it at night. you, you know what I mean? Especially I don't want to watch it alone, right? And there's certain things that I'm just like, I think it's because, man, I think it was. I remember one day turning on the TV. I was probably, I don't know, 6 or something, and fucking Nightmare on Elm Street was in the video player, and so I just get that. Firstly, there's the alleyway scene, and then the scene with the kid in bed, and then he's on the ceiling getting all
Mhm.
cut up and shit. And it's like, you know what I mean? You want to leave, but I'm just stuck to the floor. I'm just watching this stuff as a fucking 6-year-old, like and that just I couldn't walk down an alleyway for like years after that. I got fucked up. So yeah, horror is a bit, you know what I mean? But this, god damn, Bill, this was great. This was really fucking great. So where did the story come from, man?
Oh man, thank you so much, dude. The story, my cat came in. Sorry about that.
No worries. If your cat wants to jump on.
um, so I so I grew up in the '90s, and I kind of like you, just like I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even say that horror is the first thing I was ever attracted to. Like I was really scared of it, to be honest with you. My brother loved it, like loved it, and so he would make me watch all of these. Like when it was his turn to pick a movie, it was always like Demon Night. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was like, oh, yeah, he'd be like Demon Night 2. I'm like, why are they making a sequel to this? Um, and so I was always terrified. I would say that I didn't like horror, and then the movie that like really opened it up for me was People Under the Stairs.
Ah.
When I saw People Under the Stairs, I was like, oh man, I love this. Like I
Mm.
love horror, and it was awesome. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that like the lead kid looked like me and my brother.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
everything else was like this crazy thing. And it wasn't demonic. It was like real people, real steak, like it was great. And so
yeah. Mm.
that was like my initial entry into horror. And so I after that I fell in love with that, like the '90s like hood horror movie, like Tales from the Hood. There was like, Leprechaun 4 in the Hood, Bones. Like there was like this campiness to these movies that was so great and so awesome. And so I wanted to do that again. Like I
Mm.
wanted to make those movies again because they just kind of stopped. Like I don't think in the last 20 years there really had been one like that. And so it really
Mm.
had kind of halted. And so I was like, oh man, what if we remade one today for back then? It felt like I wanted people to feel like you weren't, it was a movie that your mom wouldn't let you rent because of the title. And
Yeah,
then like
yeah, yeah.
somebody in your class got it, and like you snuck home after school to watch it because it was called Bitch Ass. And we just literally wanted it to feel like you could just play it with all those other movies I said, and it felt like it fit in. And
Mm.
so that's where it originally, like the want to do that, a movie like that happened. And so then I was like, oh man, all right, it takes place in a black neighborhood. What could it be? And I was like, oh, growing up, I was bullied as a kid. And so like I wanted to, play around with that, having the killer getting bullied. And then really what I loved about it is um, the concept of like hurt people. And like the things that you put out into the world come back karmically. And like bitch ass
Mm.
is the representation of like karma. You know what I mean? And like the idea that like, oh, if uh if we are, you know, bad to each other, bad things happen. And so we really wanted the character to represent that. Eh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that you definitely feel that, right? You definitely feel, and yeah, I feel it does sit with those other films, right? It thematically, like, it feels like it's a sibling of, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you're like putting this together, was there a thing of like, oh, because all your characters here, like, no one's completely golden. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like everyone's got, there's a little something about them where you'd be like, ah, well, I mean, you did that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like, ah, and you did, you know what I mean? So everyone's got that little thing. So was that a conscious thing, or did that just come from the writing? Like, did you think, oh, we need someone who's like real, that pure person, you know what I mean, who cuts through all the crazy? Or like, yeah, when you were writing these characters, like, what was the kind of thinking here?
Yeah, I think my, you know, my favorite characters, and I, you know, I think most of our favorite characters are flawed. And my favorite types of movies in the suspense or thriller or horror genre are when you're like shifting loyalties. And
Mm,
like I love throughout a film that you just like are constantly shifting loyalties. You think that this is your person and that they're right, and then they do something, you're like, oh, they're wrong, and like this, you know, all this stuff. And so like, you know, I think that that's my favorite part of watching a movie is when you genuinely were rooting for somebody, now you hate them, and then you're back rooting for them again. And you know, that's the fun of storytelling, because we are complex. We are, you know, difficult to people in general, and like we are all good and bad at the same time. And so making sure that characters represent both is I think important for any story, but specifically in the horror genre. You know, making sure that you're uh at times you want your killer to kill.
yeah. No, for sure. And I think that's the big thing, right? That's always a frustration when you watch something and someone, they never do anything wrong.
Right.
And it's just like, come on now. Like, come on now. You ain't you ain't Lily White, motherfucker. You do shit. You, there's some grime on you. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like those people that be like, that person should be cancelled because they said that word. Then you look back a few years and be like, you said the same thing, fuck face. You know?
Yeah. We all, you know, everybody has you know, some skeletons in their closet for sure.
Mm. But it's the way, like, firstly, Bill, looking at, you know, IMBD and all of that jazz, right? So you've done like you know what I mean, you've written and directed a lot of stuff, acted in a lot of stuff, right? You've done a lot of shorts. Now, there was a TV movie, but this is like, would you say this is technically your first, like your feature debut, or do you, you know, there's
It
the
is.
TV movie and all of that, but I'm saying, like, you're watching this film and just the pace of it, right? The angles that you choose, right? Some of the ways you utilize these different like effects and tools to tell this story. It really feels like a veteran up in this piece, man. Like it unfolds really well. There's the twists that are here. There's plenty, because there's things when you're watching, like, I think I know where this is going. And they'll be like, yo, what the fuck? Wait, hold on a second. What just happened here? But it never feels cheap, right? It never feels like, oh, they got stuck and so they have to do this thing to get out of this. No, everything is, and it feels real smart with some of those things. Like, where does that come from? Is that from watching, ingesting a lot of stories and going, this is what I enjoy? Or I'm always frustrated when this happens? Or was it one of these things where the story just came to you, right? It just felt logical to tell it in this way.
Yeah, I think it's a big question. It's an amalgamation of a ton of things, right? I think one thing it is the chaos is the mother of invention, I guess, a little bit. I think some of that is it. Well, for starters, this is my first feature film that I've ever directed, and I have done a lot of shorts, yes, but this was definitely my feature debut. I didn't know if I could take anything this big on. I have experience in other areas as well, right? So, like you said, writing, but I also was a cameraman for a very, very long time. I PA'd for a very, very long time. I've worked almost every job on a film set that a human being can work. I've worked it. So I know all you know, I fully, when I step on a set, feel like there isn't a department that I cannot communicate or like talk to or anything like that. Even though I haven't done it on a feature film level, I have been around it for enough time to feel, like I know what I want, and I know how to communicate what I want to the people around me. Some of the things, that we had to do were, so first we shot this thing in 12 days, right? During COVID, without, there was no vaccine, anything. So we had to test everybody. It was a very, very slow, long process. So because of that, I designed a shot list that would keep us on task. And so that I was willing to live with wides. I was willing to live in larger setups. I was willing to live in larger framing. Couple reasons for that were obviously time prohibiting. We didn't have as much time to get in and get all of this coverage or whatever. But I also wanted it to feel a little older and a little dated. So it didn't feel like there was slick coverage for everything and all of this interesting stuff. I wanted it to feel like it kind of set and was a little bit dated. And then when it comes to, and I assume that you're talking about, some of the interesting editing choices and graphic choices that are in the movie. Part of the reason that I did some of those things were, when you're such a low budget film and you are looking and figuring out how do you make a splash, how do you do something different, I wanted to stand out. I wanted to make sure that we had something that was like, oh, okay, whoa, and it felt like super fun as well. And so in doing that, one of the things that we had talked about was like, how do we make the movie? Because for those who haven't seen it or don't know, it is a lot to do with games. And then we were like, okay, if the theme of this movie, or one of the themes in this movie, is games, how do we make the movie feel like a game? Make it feel like you are watching a game being played. And so being able to choose some of those scenes to replicate the games that they are set to be after, especially in the editing style, some of those things were really, really important, And so we chose to do it that way in order to honor the project and not just gratuitously do it.
Right. Yeah, no, because I think when you first, when it first comes on, you got Tony Todd as our kind of narrator, a bit like Hunger, you know what I mean? A bit like Twilight Zone and just all of that, like talking. I was a bit like, yo, what is this? Because it's all grainy and it's just all a little funk and it feels like an old VHS kind of thing. And I'm just like, fuck. God damn it, Sab and Marek have just hit me up with a shit film. God damn those motherfuckers. But then we get into the film and you're just like, oh shit, this is good. But then I just remember when we first get into the house and I just like, you see start at the bottom. I'm like, wait, did that say start? Like, wait, what? And then we get into those, and you're just like, oh, fuck, that's really like, it reminded me a bit of Fringe. You ever watch Fringe? It was that TV series.
Because, is that with Joshua Jackson?
Yes, yeah. Because when they go to a new spot, it'd be like Boston, like in big letters in places. And so you remind me a bit of that and a little bit of like Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
Those were the two big things that kind of, I was like, oh yeah, this feels like this. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way this kind of unfolded. And with it, because I think we don't really shy away from a lot of stuff, but it's not over the top like gore and gratuitous or all of that. Like, was that a conscious effort? Like, what were you thinking about how much to show and what not to, and how bloody you want to make it?
Yeah, I'm not like a gore guy. Like not too I'm not too much into the gore stuff. Like I torture porny,
Mm,
that stuff. I enjoy it. Like Saw, I do enjoy the concept of Saw and all that stuff. It's like one of my favorite franchises. I love it so much. They really are gory and really, really, really lean into the gore. Again, I for me, some of it, just had to do with like, is it helping the narrative or am I just doing it to do it?
mm.
It felt like it could stay on this like level that like every once in a while you're like, ooh, ugh, oh, but it never fully took you there gratuitously because we just wanted to make sure that it was a popcorn movie that a lot of people had a ton of fun watching.
Yeah, yeah. So, how did you decide what games? 'Cause it's like when you think of all the different games that we play as a kid and just that are in the store that we maybe didn't get to. There's so many. So how did you decide which ones to mess with here?
So it was a little bit of God. It was like two things, right? I think the two things that it boiled down to were what felt different from each other enough that it felt like they were unique, and then the other one was like, what realistically can I build for no money and still feels like we covered like satisfying enough games. And
Mm.
so when we went through, we were when you list your first ones, you're like, gotta do Hungry Hungry Hippo, gotta do Mousetrap, gotta do the, and then you're like, okay, I can't build a hippo. I'm not building a life-size mousetrap. What the fuck am I talking about? And so then it was just like, oh, okay. The first one was like, okay, operation. That was easy. That makes perfect sense. That's in this world. And then from there, it was like, okay, if it's Jenga, how do we make it do this? How do we make it do that? And so once we kind of narrowed it down, everything felt like, okay, they were all different enough. They satisfied the nostalgia of these games, but also I think we can do them with our own hammers and saws and toolkits. So yeah.
Like one of the things that I really thought was a little different because in things like Saw or like Escape Room, those sort of films, it's our villain is overseeing everything. But in here, like Bitch Ass is playing the games, which is just like, because when you first see the thing and you see the thing around it, you're like, oh shit, and just even operation, and it's just like, that's different, right? That's like interesting. Like, was that, did you have that kind of thought where you want to make it different? You want the guy, like the odds just to be, you know what I mean? Like, where's this going kind of thing by doing that kind of aspect of it?
Yeah. I always thought it was um yeah, to have well, one, it shows that he lives by a code, I think, which is important. What
Mm,
kind of person is this person? It's somebody who actually lives by a code in the honor of like, when you play a game, you don't cheat, you don't lie, you play the game to the end. And you trust that you are a game master enough to be able to beat the competition. You really put it on your skills. And yeah, we wanted it to be a little more immersive. The thing with Saw, obviously what he does is great, and all the stuff that it is great, and they are trying to figure out what is their own way out or whatever. But like when the stakes, but like ultimately there are no stakes on him ever.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like other than the stakes that he's dying, but what we wanted about this was just like, oh, anyone can win, anyone can, or he can be hurt. I think sometimes that's the thing that is, uh sometimes that's the thing that's tough when you start getting into movies, whether, and I say this for our Marvel and DC things. Sometimes it's just like when people in movies can't be harmed or like
Mm,
get hurt or whatever, like it really takes out the stakes of it,
yeah.
and like I think that's why some of the best movies, are when when they're slightly superhuman but not demigod. And like that's, I think sometimes when you get into the like Michael Myers and stuff like that, like just like this guy, well, we can never destroy this person. It's like it's never
Mm.
going to happen. So to watch the humanity of him playing and having to figure it out. And we also wanted to show he was smart. It wasn't just this killer. Like he actually had intelligence and was really talented. And yeah.
No, I mean that's definitely, I think that's why people love Game of Thrones, right? Because you're watching it and you'd be like, that's my favorite character. And you'd be like, wait, they killed him? They killed her? Like, what the fuck, man? You know what I mean? Like anyone could die. And I mean, that's always because you can't, like, you watch something, read something, and you just like, well, that character's never gonna they're gonna get out because obviously they're gonna live till the end. And yeah, you do kind of a little bit of interest goes when you know that and you know these outcomes. But I think that was one of the great things here, because it was like, who's getting out, right? Where is this gonna go? And then god damn, like at the very end when you have those two twists like back to back, that was like, wait, thing is still, and then you're like, oh no, but that was like all of red hair. You're like, fuck, I did not see that coming. That was great, man. That I really did enjoy that. But I think when this story is unfolding and we get these flashbacks, they didn't feel intrusive, right? So
Right.
did you like, were the flashbacks always in those places, or did things change through production, editing, and all of that?
Yeah. We wrote them as a prologue. So it was the beginning at first. And then when we sat down and saw it cut together, I think one of the things that we realized is like, oh, you're already on bitch ass's side from Jump Street. Like, this person's bad, bitch ass is good. The roles are defined, movie. And it's like, that's the opposite of what we wanted to do. And the other thing that we realized too is we rarely get to see a serial killer get built, get constructed. And I think we in rewatching, in watching the prologue, we were like, oh, what we've done is we've like slowly written a story that constructs a serial killer. And so what we ended up doing was we were like, let's just meet bitch ass and let people have an opinion. And then slowly let's peel back the layers of that opinion. And then let's slowly watch this person build into the person that they are now. So that way when you first see bitch ass, you're like, is he a bad guy? He's going to be killing these kids. Like, what's going on? And then you slowly start to get, oh, there's trauma. There's a darkness. He was great. Now he's that, and like you slowly start to get those things laid out for you. And we just thought it was a more interesting way to dole out that information that kept you guessing, was he good or was he bad, until ultimately you get to the end. Yeah.
Well, especially with the first kill.
Right.
Right. Because that first kill is just like, I mean, yeah. I won't say I'll co-sign it, but I ain't mad at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a lot here that kind of throws you.
Yeah.
And so you are on your toes all the way through the film, just wondering, like, how is this gonna unfold? Like, what's this gonna do? Like, would you say, like, the film that you devised in your head, right, to what we then end up with, how much of that is the core idea, like how you wanted it? Were there many changes here?
Yeah, it's so funny. I constantly have this conversation with other just artists in general, right? Like, what is making something, right? And what is that? What are you like? What are you judged on, right? And like,
Mm.
how do you personally judge your work, right? And so like, I think gotten to a place where there is the movie that people see, but nobody ever knows what your intention is,
Yes.
right? And so, and like that, unfortunately, right, like the medium of art is oftentimes just what people see. It's almost never what you never get to know what the intention was prior. And
Mm.
so it's really interesting to do this, because I think to ask this question that you're asking, because it opens up a new thing, which is like, to me, um the movie that I made, I would say, is in a lot of ways better than what I intended, and also in a lot of ways like not what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, like because when you think of something, you think of it at its best. You think of it at its most complete. You think about it the way you would see a memory or see something in real life. And so to me, it was like, no, the movie that I saw was $150 million. Like the movie that I wrote in my mind was $150 million. The movie I shot was $200,000. And it's just like,
Mm.
that's like the difference or whatever. And um you can't you never get there. But because of that, we created this next thing, which was so amazing, because we didn't have $100 million. We had um a shoestring budget to pull this all together. And because of that, we had to create all this other stuff that made me fall in love with the newer version of this movie, and made me fall in love with the way it was made, and made me fall in love with this. And so like, I would say that, like, yeah, that's kind of the answer. Is it the movie that I originally saw when I wrote it? No, but it I'm so impressed with what we pulled off, with what we had, and it's better than I even thought it could be.
I'd definitely say, right, it doesn't look like it's, you know what I mean, a small budget film.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
you watch it and it does look like it could be from, a Sony, a universe. Like it feels like that. It's like the cast is great, man. How the
Cast,
hell did you get all of these cats to be in the film?
dude. Big dream casting. Sherry, she's the best. We hired her, and she's like, I'm gonna get you people. You just tell me which ones you want. I'm gonna just get you people. And she did. And she was great. And like, she got people off of like way off the radar. Nobody had big credits. Everybody was just this. And like, I'm also gonna say, man, like, to my cast, like, I had a conversation with every single person individually. I called every single one of them and welcomed them to the project, and was like, look, we don't have time for you to find it. Unfortunately, this ain't that movie. We're shooting 10 pages a day. I don't got time for you to figure it out. You need to be prepared for not just for my movie, but like for you as a performer. If you want the best performance on screen, I'm not on screen, you are. If you want this to look good and be your best performance, you need to come ready. And to every person in my cast credit, they did. And not only did they, nobody was late. No one missed a COVID test. Everybody went home and did their jobs. Nobody went out and got partied and compromised themselves or the movie at all. I was completely impressed with everybody who showed up. And it showed me that when you actually get good people and you reach out and you discuss things with them, and you ask them to do it, that they can actually show up.
Okay. Now, I would definitely say they showed up. But right, some of that definitely professionalism.
Yeah.
But I want to know what the fuck that locker room speech was that you gave him, man. It must have been some Any Given Sunday shit, because you know what I mean? It's like the performances we get they sold it, right? You get that kind of cue, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
get that he's, he wants to be a doctor, but he still kind of wants to be a part of this gang. He feels like there's that thing there, right? The bit when Tuck pulls the gun,
yeah, yeah.
yo, you thought that was gonna get messy, and then it's just like, ha, I'm just messing with, and you're just like, motherfucker, right? That was just like that switch, and these performances just all gave us what you thought these characters would be and should be, and felt real. So yeah, what did you say to these people, man? Like, how did you kind of get them to invoke these performances? Were you like, yo, this is what this character is, like, here's some music, or here's some film references that will put you in that mindset, or like, what?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely gave a lot of film references, and kind of talked about it, and like, you know, um, for everybody in the gang, I was like, watch Juice. For Tuck, I was like, you're Tupac and Juice, you're Omar Epps and Juice. Like, that
Mm.
the relationship of Juice is the kind of the relationship of those four kids. The mom, I'm like, you're Jada Pinkett and Set It Off. That's your character.
Yeah,
She even
yeah,
wears
yeah.
the same exact jumpsuit as her in the movie. Because that's another like 90s homage kind of thing. And then also watch Tales from the Hood and get those references. But like, the things that we wanted to make, I went in talking with the Q character. I'm like, you're us in this world, so make sure that your experiences is what the audience is experiencing. We're discovering things with you. You are the lens that we look through most of this movie through. So you have to have a level of vulnerability throughout this piece that we feel like it is us, throughout this moment. And then yeah, the guy, the actor who plays Tuck is great, and the actor who plays Spade is also phenomenal. And just you know in talking with him, making sure that Spade he doesn't need to be yelling or this or blah, blah. He can just hold power, and he really does. And
Mm.
that's really, really wonderful. And yeah, so everybody had references and stuff, but like, I also give them a ton of credit for doing the character work, and bringing it, and just allowing me to come in and tweak. I think, like, I said to them that, like, I'm not your acting coach, I'm your director. And so my job is to just come in and make sure that you are putting, and I'm just coming in to tweak and make sure that you're putting the performance that best services this movie on a larger scale. But like, by the time you show up, you will have known this character more than I will. So, let's talk about it. What do you think this character should be doing? Let's talk about what we think the character should be doing. And so, I think a lot of them did their homework and brought some really incredible performances.
Oh yeah, this is a great calling card for these, what I mean, actors going forward, right? People are
Yeah.
gonna see this and be like, "Yo, we need them in our pieces, man." So yeah, it was great. You co-wrote this with Jonathan
Coolum.
Colum. Yeah.
Yeah. Coolum. Yeah.
What's that process like for you?
Man, John's the best. He and I are just, it's us phone calling each other every day. And I always sometimes I'm like, John, I'm sorry I'm calling you, man. Let's just talk through this scene. Let's just talk through this scene. It depends on the project, but sometimes, it'll be we'll come over to my house or his house, and we will note card the entire film out. Like, oh, what do you think happens here? Write it down. What do you think happens here? Write it down, write it down, write it down. What do you think happens here? Write it down. And then we'll talk through each scene. And then we'll just be like, all right, 5 scenes for you, 5 scenes for me. Let's go. we'll do like a, well, that's, yeah. So we'll do 5 scenes, and we're just outlining it like a paragraph for each scene.
Right.
And from there, we are like, all right, let's read the entire thing for each scene's paragraph, and then be like, oh man, this isn't. Let's do this, and then let's connect this to this, and foreshadow here, and pay this off here, and blah 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 blah, and then we'll put it out, and they're like, okay, first 5 scenes you're writing, next 5 scenes I'm writing, and then we send each other the scenes, and then we read through it all together and clean it up so it tonally fits. And yeah, so it's really collaborative and really 50-50.
Nice. Yeah, no, yeah, it's always interesting because there's so many different ways I've heard how people collaborate. So it's just like,
yeah,
you wonder when you see these things, like, oh, how did this all come together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the film is gonna drop in a couple weeks, right? How do you have any say in that kind of stuff? Like, you know what I mean? What do you think about this dropping close to Christmas? Like, or do you yeah, how does all of that get worked out?
I don't have any say, but I, trust Signature and the people who are doing this. They believe in this movie, and they have the movie's best interest at heart. So like, I completely, turn that over to them. And we were lucky in the US to get to release it in October, in Halloween. And so that was great. And in talking with Signature, this was when they wanted to do it. But I feel like this movie, as much as it is a horror film, can be seen all year round, and I'm okay with that. And so yeah, like I said, I don't have any say on it, but I'm also completely okay with it.
Yeah, I kind of feel that, people they'll be finishing work for the year potentially.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? People got time on their hands. So yeah, it definitely, yeah, I don't think you need to watch it around Halloween or anything like that. It can, yeah, drop anytime. But what was it like when you dropped it stateside? How did it feel to finally have this out in the world?
Bro, the best feeling. I like you, and I only lived with this thing for 18 months, and it felt like I was like, guys, it's got to get out. I just got to get it out. It's just this. So once it got released, it was like, oh, I can have my life back. I can look at some other thing. I can think about something else, because it is all consuming. So it was nice. It was
Yeah. But I think going through this whole process, right? Doing it during COVID, right? Doing it in 12 days, like that must make you feel now that like anything, you can do anything. You know what I mean? Like you've got over this, you put this out, like the reception that you've got, which I can imagine, like I can't imagine people hating on this shit. Right. So yeah, you must feel like, yeah, anything is possible now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's made me realize that like, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And that like, I know I have, now that I've gotten this out of the way, that like, um where that there is a way to do anything. You know what I mean? There is a way to do anything. And so it has really, really, if anything, fueled a larger passion for the next thing and the next thing. And like, it doesn't feel like this gorilla anymore that you can't tackle. It really, really feels like, oh, okay, it's just a long process that you have to be willing to knuckle down and do, but you can do it.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure, man. And I think this is a testament to that, right? And the way the film ends, definitely, that definitely was unsettling. Gotta say, with the table, it's just like, oh no, right? But does that mean there's ideas floating?
Yeah, no, there's definitely ideas floating for a sequel, and as long as I don't have to raise the money for it, I would love to do it. So, we'll see over the next, few months, 6 months. I don't know. See how the film's doing. See if it resonates with any investors or production companies to see if they want to give me a shot at another one.
Yo, Bill, with what they can see you've done on this budget, I get like, and this is the thing, right? Because people want franchises because it's built-in content. So I imagine studios are gonna be knocking down that door, man, which is tremendous. You did a tremendous job, man. I'm really happy that the guys at Signature sent this across, and you know were nice enough to give me some of your time, man. Really appreciate that. But yeah, I know Sab is gonna be like, get off. Bill's got to go do some other stuff, right? So I'm gonna let you go in a second. But before I do, let the people know how they can follow you and keep track of all the stuff you're gonna be doing.
Oh yeah, I'm very simple. I'm at Bill Posley on pretty much everything. So my name at Bill Posley. I think I'm like the only one. I'm very fortunate to have most of my name. So that's basically it. And yeah, thank you guys so much and thank you for having me. I'm so glad Signature set this up. You're amazing. This conversation flew by so fast, and I really, really appreciate your love for the film.
Hey man, I'm just saying what I watched, and I watched like, do you understand the amount of horror films? I'm not a huge horror. Like I like a good story, but I'm just like, I don't want to see any more demons, man. Stop sending me the demons, right? That's probably one of the biggest genre of films that get sent through. So when you watch a good one, oh man, it feels good. And when just watching a good film in general, it's great because there's definitely some turkeys, but you know what I mean? Like, people put their heart and soul into this stuff. So you try and give everything some love, right? You don't want to trash things, but watching a great film and talking about it's an easy thing, man. And this was a great film. So yeah, thank you. Thank you,
sir.
And when you've got the next project, Bill, please come by. Come by for another, and let's maybe put some more time aside next time so we have a longer chat, because there's more stuff I wanted to talk to you about. But god damn it, I've got to let you go.
I will, I swear. Thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, tremendous, man, and congratulations on a great film.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, man.
Bye.
Peace.